Before moving on to examine the rest of the Buffyverse, I'd like to comment on the Unaired Buffy pilot. It's a half-hour version of Welcome to the Hellmouth and Parts of the Harvest, and it's really bad quality.
On a scale of 1 to 10, it sucked.
People talk about how horrible it is that channel executives can never let Joss use his original pilots, like with Dollhouse and Firefly, but this is the case where everyone has to admit that the original pilot stunk. People often criticize Joss by saying he's an egomaniac who can never take responsibility for his failures, citing the Buffy movie and Alien Resurrection, where Joss respectively blames actor Donald Sutherland and director Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
Raj has always had a thing for those disgusting alien movies, with all that slime and teeth. Ugh, he just can't get enough of them. Except for that last one they made. I think he dozed off.
But the Buffy pilot is good evidence against this. Joss takes full responsibility for the sheer badness of the Buffy pilot and considers it a major embarrassment. The reason that the only footage you can find of it is in such bad quality is because Joss refuses to ever publish it in a Buffy collection, as it is such a stain on his record. For me, it kind of fits into the realm of a lot of typical campy vampire films. It's bad for TV standards, but there is some heart to be found in some of it. The actors make the best of bad writing and bad direction, both performed by Joss Whedon, in addition to bad effects and bad editing. The editing, I think, is how a lot of it seems worse than it is, because shots just don't end. They just keep on showing the actor not really doing anything. They don't cut back and forth in the way we expect. But whatever. Feminist review. It starts out with the same opening as Welcome to the Hellmouth, with the feminist subversion of the violence against women horror cliché where the girl's eaten by the monster, where Darla turns out to be the vampire and eats the boy. We move on to the high school, here called Berryman High, where Buffy joins looking like the typical Valley girl. The Unaired pilot seems to be written exclusively for people who didn't see the movie, and as a result we're only given hints about her sacred duties in her conversation with Principal Flutie, played here by Stephen Tobolowsky, who I actually think does a better job than Ken Lerner at what the Welcome to the Hellmouth screenplay describes Flutie as, a man struggling to be both appropriately authoritative and a caring, fun guy to his students. Next, we see Xander, Willow, and Cordelia interactions. Here, Willow is played by plus-size actress Riff Regan, whose name makes one wonder when Goneril shows up.
Huh. Genius, crack a book sometime.
It's jarring to see this different actress, as Alison Hannigan is who we all associate with Willow, and Willow is a far more central character than Flutie. The fans regard Riff Regan very poorly, and for the most part I think it's unwarranted. Now I'm going to address the elephant in the room here. A lot of this has to do with her weight. Modern American society has a great deal of stigma related to fat and larger body types, largely stemming from the higher classes being able to afford foods that don't promote weight gain, thereby making thinness a fashion indicating wealth, as opposed to when America was adoring the bounty after the Great Depression, and weight was a sign of wealth. This has great relevance to feminism because of how it affects how women and girls are treated. The arbitrary beauty standard of thinness is ubiquitous in Hollywood. Even these super thin women are constantly being policed by entertainment reporting, shaming them for daring to look even remotely average. That has a colossal effect on how everyday women and girls see themselves. Eating disorders are rampant, and I'm not just saying that because it's in my username, as women and girls believe that their worth comes from how thin they are. Girls as young as 7 make unhealthy dietary decisions based on what will make them look thin. The idea of thinness indicating health, and thus should be promoted because of this reason, is 95% just an excuse to justify bullying and self-destructive behavior. Girls starve themselves and police each other's bodies based on this arbitrary beauty standard. Fat women are just hated by society, with all sorts of negative stereotypes associated with them, about laziness and unkemptness. It's everything fat guys get, without the sense of community, and with all the junk that every woman gets for being a woman in a patriarchal society. As a result, Riff Regan gets a lot of hate from body-shaming Buffy fans, who also had issues with Amber Benson supposedly being too fat when she joined the cast in Season 4. I suspect that a lot of people who dislike Riff Regan as Willow are also biased in this fashion, even if they don't explicitly say that's what they don't like about her. I think it could have been awesome having a plus-sized actress as Willow. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is about giving girls confidence with strong role models. And though that can be cheesy, Buffy does it well. to the point that researchers have given the name the Buffy effect to the phenomenon where women gain confidence from watching empowered female characters on TV. Curvier girls deserve that kind of role model, which I think Amber Riley has been for a lot of us in her time on Dancing with the Stars.
I want to let women of all sizes out there know you can do whatever you put your mind to. It doesn't matter what size you are, what color you are. You can do whatever you put your mind to.
I've become aware that my own main desire for losing weight, such as it is, comes from how strong women are portrayed on TV. I literally have the underlying assumption that I need to look like Buffy to be empowered. A curvier Willow could have been life-changing for a lot of girls. It's often said that Riff Regan was initially cast as Willow, but Joss fired her because the pilot reveals that she's a terrible actress. But I don't think that's necessarily true. Her performance in the pilot isn't great, but the pilot itself isn't great. Plus, we expect Alyson Hannigan. I can't say for sure that Riff Regan would have been good as Willow, because I'm not familiar with her acting abilities, but she did have a recurring role on the NBC drama Sisters as young Georgie, so this isn't exactly a first-time acting job. Alyson Hannigan as Willow won our hearts with her ability to be cute, sad, scary, and protective. But who's to say Riff Regan couldn't do all that given the chance? I think she deserves a solid maybe. Joss says that he fired her because she didn't have any chemistry with the other actors, and chemistry is very important. It's hard for me to judge not being able to observe the interactions outside the pilot itself, but I don't think the pilot itself is the best demonstration. Everything is stilted and awkward. In the Welcome to the Hellmouth audio commentary, Joss Whedon says that he had to fight the WB executives to get Willow in such a conservative outfit. They wanted Willow to be a copy of Buffy, essentially. A fun, outgoing extrovert who wears interesting outfits. He had to fight to get a nerdy, awkward girl, saying that there was a certain segment of the audience that would love this kind of character, and he eventually got them to compromise on the outfits with the idea that Buffy gives her the confidence to wear interesting outfits after the first episode. This is just speculation on my part, but it could be that the WB executives had an issue with a plus-sized actress and put pressure on Joss to find a new, thinner Willow. Some feminists, when analyzing the Riff Regan situation, make the assumption that Joss Whedon himself discriminated against her because he dislikes fat women. They characterize him as a gross man who only puts his sexual fantasies on screen, as part of a general attempt to call Joss not a real feminist because he's a guy. This is likely drawn by how he initially thought Amber Benson was too heavy to play Tara, given that his idea for Tara was a small, waifish girl, and he had to be talked into hiring Amber Benson. As anyone in touch with reality can see that Amber Benson is thin by the standards of the normal world, if not Hollywood, it's easy to see Joss Whedon as this gross figure who only wants super thin women on his shows. This idea falls apart under closer scrutiny. For one, Joss had to have okayed the initial hiring of Riff Regan. For another, he had actress Jules State put on weight to play Kaylee in Firefly. I've seen Jules State at several conventions say that she respects Joss Whedon for not wanting to show a model-looking girl, and instead wanting to show a normal girl who eats cheeseburgers from time to time. That Jules State as Kaylee ultimately doesn't look that fat is more of a commentary on Hollywood standards than Joss Whedon. With regard to Amber Benson, I think Joss just wanted Tara to look weak, as she's the neglected, bullied girl, and Willow could then rescue her in the same dynamic as Angel and Fred. People try to characterize Joss as evil for a variety of things, but that's the wrong way to look at it. He's not a malevolent agent of patriarchy disguising himself as a feminist to cause trouble. He always thinks he's being good. As with a lot of Joss's issues, I think the problem is that he genuinely thinks that he's being good by not caring. I think Joss believes in this utopian ideal of a world in which body type doesn't matter, and thus goes with the pressures of Hollywood marketing, unwittingly participating in the system that makes women hate their bodies.
I have filled out even more, and I apparently ain't gonna.
Riff Regan as Willow and Xander exchange the same dialogue as their first scene in Welcome to the Hellmouth. And what strikes me is that Xander is cuter than Willow.
Xander is so much cuter than anyone.
To some degree, this may be why Riff Regan is liked less than Alyson Hannigan, who seems to be constantly cute, which is a sign of sexism. While male actors can be accepted for having all kinds of faces, women are held in a far tighter standard and are expected to be constantly appealing. More than that, though, Nicholas Brendon's whole performance seems cuter, maybe more vulnerable, than in most of early Buffy. Maybe it's because Welcome to the Hellmouth was trying to do something complicated where Xander was coming in on a skateboard, and they couldn't get a lot of takes, maybe. But his whole delivery about the bit about needing help with math is much better in the pilot than in Welcome to the Hellmouth. I mean, just compare this
Can you help me out tonight, please? Be my study buddy.
Well, what's in it for me?
A shiny nickel.
To this.
Can you help me out in third period, please? Be my study buddy.
Well, what's in it for me?
A shiny nickel.
Okay.
He's cuter, right? I think it's likely that Xander's whole issues with gender roles were thought up later than the pilot, and he was later made into a more reserved, standoffish character to make him fit with traditional gender roles. But I just didn't think that the whole nickel thing was fun. It seemed like just really stale dialogue, except in the pilot where he says it all cute-like. I think feminists would like him better if he was introduced as this cute, just because his openness makes him easier to appreciate. After Cordelia mocks Willow's taste in clothing, Xander mocks Cordelia's preoccupation with what people choose to wear, causing her to viciously insult his appearance. Though he attacks her to defend someone else, the fact that these two scenes are put right next to each other instead of being broken up like in Welcome to the Hellmouth makes it so that we appreciate Xander's position more. We appreciate what it's like for the nerds and the popular girls to live in the same community together. When Jesse teases Cordelia in Welcome to the Hellmouth, using a bit of sexual innuendo, we're kind of unsure about the situation. Cordelia kind of has a point by being annoyed at him. By having these two scenes right together, Cordelia is emphasized as a bully of Sunnydale High, or Berryman High. Also, Jesse isn't present in the pilot. Having Xander perform the same basic role as Jesse makes it clear that Jesse was just split off from Xander, just to fulfill the purpose of being Joss Whedon's first victim. Xander bumps into Buffy, getting a crush on her then, and he directs her to the library and ends up with her steak. The library actually seems closer to Joss's ideal set than what they eventually ended up with, as he said that the library scene in the animated series pilot was the library he saw in his head. The same scene plays out, this time being the first real indicator that Buffy is a vampire slayer. Instead of Buffy witnessing Cordelia's bullying behavior, feeling sorry for Willow and seeking her out, a teacher assigns Willow to Buffy as a tutor. They start talking and get to be friends, just from Buffy being friendly. Cordelia then shows up to rescue Buffy from unpopularity, somewhat like Draco Malfoy to Harry Potter. Buffy doesn't know that Cordelia is a jerk, though, and she leaves Willow. Later on, Xander approaches Buffy to use the steak as a conversation starter. Though Xander doesn't freak out at the idea of Buffy using a sharpened stick as a self-defense weapon, he at least indicates that weapons aren't necessary at Berryman, as far as he knows. He flirts with her by pointing out the cliques, including upper-class white wannabe gangsters, which is one of the few times that race issues are actually discussed on Buffy. The only other example I can think of is Mr. Trick in Season 3, where it's really just to establish that he's a vampire coming from a different era. And Buffy also identifies some cliques. Xander labels one group of girls as the Dirty Girls, which turns out to be literal, they never bathe. It's an allusion to the slut-shaming practice, if not an actual occurrence of such. Though I'm not a Buffy-Xander shipper, Buffy and Faith are obviously the one true pairing, the scene makes it clearer why that would be appealing than most canon Buffy-Xander interactions. Willow shows up, sad.
In the woman's locker room, they found someone.
That shows an empathy to the death not seen very well in Welcome to the Hellmouth. Cordelia and the Cordettes then show up to pull Buffy away from Willow and Xander, but Buffy runs off to check out the corpse. She confronts Giles. The same basic scene plays out, with an extra stunt. I guess Buffy could be angrier this time, but not significantly. The acting just isn't as good as Welcome to the Hellmouth either way. She delivers a long rant about her issues, which really could be cut down as with Welcome to the Hellmouth, but it does present Buffy as an interesting character. Joss Whedon needed to learn show, don't tell, but we still got that empowered female character focus. Xander overhears, and it makes more sense with the larger library that neither Giles nor Buffy noticed him. That night, Buffy heads to the Bronze, where Dingoes Ate My Baby is playing. Xander catches up with her and probes her to try to get her to admit that she's a vampire slayer. He offhandedly mentions that Willow got picked up, and Buffy interrogates him about this guy's fashion, already having how people dress as a tool of vampire detection. I like that Buffy already considers fashion dead serious, giving importance to that Valley Girl hobby. Ever the hero, Buffy runs off to rescue Willow.